Grade 8 bolts are not shear pins, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, come
Don't
on.
do it.
Come
Don't
on.
do it. There's some like U.S. listeners going like, what's a snow blower? It's like a lawnmower for your snow, okay?
Yeah, but the blades spin forwards, not downwards. If any of you don't know what a snowblower is, on the off chance, look up snowblowers mounted on the front of trains. They'll freak you the hell out.
Yeah, those things are pretty wild.
They are very wild. Anyways, enough talking about trains.
Hey everyone, I'm Brad from Calgary.
This is Sean from Cambridge, Ontario.
I'm Terry from Cornwall, Ontario.
Hey, this is Larry from Pitt Meadows, British Columbia, and you're listening to the Towing Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Towing Life Podcast, where the ditches are deep, the trucks are loaded, but the drivers are not. I am your host, TowManG, and as usual, I am joined by my co-host, friend, and former co-worker, the man with very strong opinions, Mr. PlainGuy.
What is going on, G? What is going on?
Well, my voice sounds a lot deeper in my head, but I have no idea what I actually sound like because I can't remember what the last episode sounded like.
It's funny, actually, because when we first sat down and started talking, and you didn't bring it up until now, so I was going to leave it alone. I was like, oh shit, G hit puberty. Like, man, why does this guy sound so mature? And then I realized, I was like, oh, he must be sick or something going on, because that's a shame. I really did think that you and I were going to have the talk about the birds and the bees, and coming into manhood and what it meant, and what those dreams are that you're having at night. But it turns out,
PlainGuy.
It turns out that it's just a cold. It could turn into the man flu, which be warned, right? I've heard is worse than childbirth.
Speaking of, have you seen the new Jimmy Carr special on Netflix where he has to talk with that one young boy?
Okay, maybe I didn't hear that. So, anyways, you know what about off topic.
You Jimmy went to Carr, see Jimmy Carr. Yeah,
that exact set is what I seen. Yeah. I sat down and I watched most of the special. I hadn't finished it. I was about halfway through, but that set was exactly what he was on tour doing when we went and seen him in Toronto a year ago or something along those lines. Yeah, no, it's a great set. But I don't know, I can't say the story specifically. He did pick on a kid in our audience as well, but I don't know. I haven't watched it to see if it was the same, same way. Obviously there should be little variations, but yeah. Jimmy Carr is an amazing
consent and everything. Yeah. Jimmy Carr.
Yeah. Okay, I think it was the same. Yeah, it's probably the same skit.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen Jimmy Carr's new special on Netflix, I would highly recommend going and checking it out. He's trying a little bit more long form comedy. Beautiful.
I'm a big comedy fan. I watch a lot of stand-up comedians. It's one of my things I love doing. Most of the podcasts I listen to are stand-up comedians that have podcasts. And I watched over last week. I had to watch it over like 3 sittings. It was the roast of Tom Brady. Now, it is not for anyone that wants to watch it. You do not have to be a football fan. I want to get that out there. You can get a lot of the jokes, even without. Obviously, there's some that you just won't get.
Are you sure? Even me?
No, there's going to be jokes you're just not going to understand, which is completely understandable. You will not understand why Randy Moss did not have a ring in New England. Like, you'll get that. Like, you won't have a clue.
No.
But there is, and this was streamed live on Netflix the day that it came out. The Sunday was actually a live event. Kevin Hart hosted. That should say enough right there. The darkness of the things that I heard on that show, like it borderline put Chappelle to shame.
Really?
That way. Like, yes, there is moments, and I am a very conservative person in the way that I believe that people should be able to say whatever they want as long as it's used in the proper context, right? Or used in comedy and not used as a direct attack on somebody. I'm all for that. Mind you, these are attacks because that's why it's called a roast, but they went to things where I went, oh my God, you can't say that. Like, I laughed my ass off at it, but I was like, you can't say that. So be sure to check it out. I won't give any spoilers on the jokes, But let's just say with all the political times that are going on with things like, rappers like P. Diddy, the Israel Palestine conflict, they touch on all of it at one point or another in it. So yes, it is very, if you get offended easily, you probably won't be working at a towing
If you get
company
offended
long,
easily, why are you watching our show? Because you're probably
that's what I was going to say. You're probably not going to be in
the
you're not going to be in the towing industry long enough. So we'll say hi, goodbye. It was nice of you to stop by. But yes, if you want a good laugh, it's about 3 hours long, no commercial, straight through. There's goods and there's highs and there's lows, there's bad parts. But if you've watched it, I want to hear about it. Right? Like, let me know in the chat if you watched it, what you thought. Was it, as tough as what I'm saying it is, or was it soft for your likings? I'll be able to judge our audience based on their answer to that question. You can let us know if you're watching over on YouTube down below in the comments. As usual, if you're not, you can head over to our Facebook page, the Towing Life Podcast. You can visit our website at www.towinglife.ca, or you can email us directly at thetowinglife@gmail.com. On our website, you'll find a contact us form. That's the main way that a lot of new listeners or people that we haven't received messages from in the past have been reaching out, is through that contact us form.
Yep.
So head over if you got a question, concern, anything for the show, or to hear your thoughts on if you have watched the roast of Tom Brady.
You can text us over on Spotify now.
Yes, if you're listening over on Spotify, you will see in the episode description that there is an option to text us, which will go directly through to us. I'm not sure if we can reply. I haven't tried that. I ran a test on my own phone. Maybe it's something. Maybe we can have a little text thread going. But
maybe.
Be sure to check it out. Let us know what you think about it. If you haven't watched it already, go ahead and watch it.
Yep.
And as for the Jimmy Carr, huge dark comedy. Really enjoy it. Much darker than we are.
Just one quick thing. With AI on the rise, I just want to know, is there any place for AI, and I'm not saying artificial insemination for horses and cows and stuff, I'm talking about artificial intelligence like ChatGPT and stuff like that. Is there any place for that in the towing industry moving forward besides this podcast?
Right. So what she's referring to is, in our last episode, you will notice that our description, our title, and everything seemed a little bit more fancy than we're used to.
Yes.
And I will be the first to admit it. The service that we use offered an opportunity to try out this new model that they're running, which the computer listened to our entire episode, put together an entire description, a blog post, everything else. That is not, I enjoy writing. I have dabbled in writing here and there. That was me. I could have done that same thing with a lot of work into it for how quick the AI did it. So it is an AI feature. Is AI, can it be involved in the towing industry? I think so, but obviously from an admin side of things, whether that be through dispatching, whether that be through, processing of, I currently in our office, implement and working on a new project that is done through what's called Power Apps. It's a Microsoft program. It's been awesome. Power Apps, Forms, and then there's Power Automate and different things like that. So there is a certain level you can make AI keep an eye on your email, and keywords can force it into doing something, or it can try and evaluate the tone of an email, which I could use as a self-review before sending out. I haven't dabbled too much with it. I think AI in all industries is something that's going to come, but it's obviously not on the hands-on side of things, right? Like it can't tow a car.
Not yet.
Right? AI still cannot tow a car. Not yet. However, it can help in, doing things. It's a lot more, I believe, in the automation side of things rather than the AI side of things. Because it's all rules, right? Which is pretty much what AI is. You can set up AI to follow guidelines and rules the same way that you can set processes up to do it. Like I have, if a driver requests a time off, okay, I get a request for the time off. I accept it. If I accept it, it does this steps. If I reject it, it does this steps, and forwards off emails to the appropriate departments and everything else. But as for AI in the towing industry, other than when it comes to social media, and all those kind of things,
Yeah.
I can't see much of a use for it outside of that.
I think I pretty much agree with everything you said there.
Yeah, you can't until it can tow a car. I'm not hiring AI.
No, and I think a lot of, but let's be frank, most people in the towing industry, I want to say a majority of them, are in the older demographic still. That is changing, but that's just what it is. And unfortunately, they're not, not so uppity with the times, I guess you could say. And they've done it the same way for 20, 30 years, and it hasn't failed them yet. So why would they change now? And you can't really fault them for that.
I'd like to see. I mean, maybe there's an option in dispatching that it could go into somehow. Maybe it can coordinate calls and dispatch trucks out at a more efficient rate, or
with a system like
know,
you have where all your trucks are GPSed and everything, and you're using TowSoft, shout out to TowSoft, and it's got that whole system already built in that it can access and play with. I could see something like that going on, and then that's replacing a dispatcher's job. I wouldn't want to switch over a call taker's job to AI, because people get pretty pissed off when there's AI in drive-thrus now, let alone when a car breaks down on the side of the highway and they call your friendly local tow company and they get talked to by a robot. I think that would
wait. What drive-thrus or what fast foods have AI now? Am I missing? How do you know about this in your dink ass town that you're from of 5 people?
Well, no, I'm seeing it on the internets. People are going into drive-thrus, and I think it's more so in the States. Like some McDonald's drive-thrus have AIs now, and what would you like to order today? And then you say, okay, and anything else? And then you say something else. Okay, and anything else? And it's just annoying as hell. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not know. Honestly, I did not know.
Self-checkouts and AI is taking over a lot of jobs in America.
I mean, I can't wait for them to be able to tow.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'd love to see my AI help my drivers with billing so that they don't have stupid mistakes, and it just goes like, calculate how much this bill should be. I mean, it shouldn't be hard. How many kilometers did you go? This many. Did you use any of this equipment? Yes, no, yes. Okay, the bill is this much. Not, I don't know, it said $50, so I charged him $50. I was like, that wasn't like, what?
Speaking of equipment, we got a slide here that I want to talk about briefly. And I'm not sure if this gentleman just wanted to inflate the bill a little bit and using 2 sets of dollies, but we've got a picture here of a extended cab wrecker towing a Toyota all-wheel drive SUV. It's on dollies. And the little Toyota's towing a tiny little single axle trailer, which is also on a set of dollies.
Huh.
Yeah. No, I've been in a situation like this before. I had a front wheel drive Buick SUV towing a U-Haul trailer. And I was like, yeah, I can tow you both. It's fine. I can tow your trailer. We don't need to separate it. And when I picked up the front end of the SUV, my ride height, even if I ran the front end of the car a little low, the trailer hitch was going to be too close to the ground and risk causing damages. So I put dollies underneath the ass end of this Buick just to get that hitch height that I needed to go safely down the road. And that works. It also makes 100%. It nicer for backing up because now you got the 2 sets of tires on the ground instead of just one pivot point. So it slows down that maneuverability to when you're trying to back up.
Okay, I was like, pretty sure it still pivots, but no, I know what you mean. It's dollies do change how a vehicle will pivot on a point. It's a slower, it's a slower to cut and a slower to come back scenario. So yeah, no, I've been in that same situation as you have, where I've dollied a vehicle, a front wheel drive, only because of the trailer to move it off to a spot. You think this guy charged twice for dollies? Like, you think if you had a set fee of $40, let's say if you had a dolly or whatever his pricing is, I don't want to get chewed apart in the comments because I said, a stupidly low or a stupidly high price for dollies. Do you think he charged twice? Like, I'm a big believer in billing what you use. I'm also a big believer in billing what you need.
If you think about it, in this situation, he's only going to carry 1 set of dollies on his truck. So either this was in his yard and he grabbed another set of dollies off of another vehicle just to fuck around and find out, or you had to have someone come and bring them another set of dollies, in which case you've got another vehicle. You're at least going to have to go to a shop and grab another set of dollies and load them up onto your truck somehow and then use them in the field. So you should really be charging more if for like, we don't know the full story. We only see half the picture of this little trailer. The other wheel could be off or flat or whatever. And the guy,
yeah, but what are the chances like the SUV is dead and the trailer is dead? What are the, you know what I mean? Or has an issue? Now, I
they
don't
could have
know
hit
if
a
this
nail on the driver's side of the vehicle and popped the trailer tire and the
Yeah.
rear tire of the
fair enough. That it is a possibility. You'd have to double check in on what the legality is in your area for doing this, right? But the other question I have, and again, it comes down to legality. Maybe the trailer wasn't plated and could not travel on the road, where dollying the trailer would eliminate that. Even though it's being drawn behind a tow truck, there's, depending on your region, different things apply to that. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe you couldn't have those wheels on the ground because it wasn't plated or insured, or depending on what the requirements are for that area. I don't know. There's nothing in the even the description says double dollies. Who all pulled this off before? I thought it was pretty cool when my customer showed me this picture.
And this was posted by Wrecker Warehouse of Texas LLC, but he's saying that it was his customer showed him this picture, so we have no idea.
So it's another company somewhere. So we don't know where, how, what the circumstances behind any of it are. But it is a cool photo. It is something different to see. I'd like to know the reasoning behind it. Can't really see any safety chains or anything else. Also, it's a self-loader, it looks like.
Yeah, I don't see any straps on the dollies either. But
again, he's in a parking lot at this point. I'm not a criticize you for a photo on nothing secured. I mean, I move shit around too.
I move shit around for a long distance that I really shouldn't have before.
I will never admit to any of that because I don't know what can be used in a court of law against us at this point.
What do you mean? I'm just taking it from this parking lot to this parking lot, sir. That's 60 miles away from here. Wow, it's just a quick shunt. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm bringing it to the next safest spot. What about that parking lot? That's private property. That doesn't look safe.
Yeah.
The next safest
I know a
spot
guy got shot there last year. That's not safe.
Yeah. There's definitely loopholes in towing, and people are going to find a way, one way or another, to exploit them. You may be those people. The other thing we really want to get into, I thought it was cool. A company called Clover Towing posted this up, and we always like to talk about different equipment, different tools, different ideas for things. Now, we kind of had the same conversation where this seems like a very simple one-use tool. I don't know what their other plans are for it. But what it is, it's a newer style Dodge Sprinter van with a motorcycle. I don't think that's just a ramp, G. I think that's one of those like loading, like a full loading mechanism. Yep. Clover Towing's latest innovation, the new motorcycle transportation van. Are you searching for a high-quality motorcycle ramp to transport your bike this summer? Look no further than the latest motorcycle ramp. This ramp features innovative tilting capability, allowing for easy loading in tight spaces, followed by safe transportation in an enclosed van. Its adaptability to different tire widths and diameters make it ideal for any type of bike. We are thrilled to welcome this new truck to the Clover Towing family. Our team of experts is committed to serving you with the highest level of professionalism, ensuring that your motorcycle is transported safely and efficiently. We pride ourselves on our dedication to quality service and our commitment to customer satisfaction. So it's a Sprinter van that, hauls motorcycles around. I'm not going to shit on it, first of all, because I like the idea. Even just looking at the ramp, like you can use that Sprinter van for anything, right? Like that ramp system is what do you think you're using it for?
This it's actually a ProMaster van by the looks of it.
Sorry.
So it's got this ramp that comes out the back with a little shuttle
system on it.
Yeah, a tray system that goes down. You lock the front tire in. Then it looks like there's either a hand crank or an electric winch at the top of the ramp, winches the bike up. And then I'm hoping there's another winch at the front of the van to actually drag this ramp up and into the van. My problem with this is, and there's a couple, it's very single use. You're spending $30,000, $40,000 on a van and all the equipment for it. when you could probably get a little single axle trailer for about $10,000. You could even put the same ramp setup that you've got in this van into a trailer, and then you have a designated trailer. My problem with this is okay, you say, okay, I'm going to buy this piece of this van for an asset for my company. But then you do something like this to it, and you're like, okay, well, I've lost the ability to haul around airbags with it. Because if that's
No,
my
you
only
haven't.
tool, well, if you say this is the vehicle I'm going to haul around airbags with, you're probably going to leave airbags in it. And then, oh, I've got a motorcycle tow. I got to take the airbags out. Well, it's out towing a motorcycle. Now you've got an airbag call come in. So you're switching things around anyways. If you're going to have a designated piece of equipment to do a designated job, make it ready for that job, right? Where a $10,000 trailer would do the same role that this van is doing, and anything in your fleet can tow that trailer, I think is a lot better.
Okay, so let's use the argument of that with the trailer. So that being said, would you not? So you're arguing that it's a one-trick pony in sense, right? It's a one-trick pony because so they don't have to switch and put the airbags in it and possibly take the airbags out. Well, the trailer would be the same thing then. You would say by having an airbag trailer, well, it's a one-trick pony because all I can do is haul your airbags around. Now I need a separate trailer for the motorcycle.
Yes, but you're also talking about a $30,000 to $40,000 van or a $10,000 trailer. Hell, for an airbag trailer, you probably only need like a $5,000 trailer. They don't need to be very big.
100%. Well,
right?
Yeah, $5,000,
so I'm saying dollars to
trailer,
donuts for the return of investment and practical use for your company.
But then you still need a truck to haul it around.
Yeah.
Yes,
but if you're a tow truck company.
Now, how many times have we ran into this situation? You and I worked for a company, which we loved, where they bought a van. Or not a van, a trailer. We had a pretty much a dedicated motorcycle trailer that was a very simple concept that just had a wheel chock mounted in it with some extra tie-down rings. That trailer was very, very versatile.
Yes.
It could be used for multiple things if need be, correct?
Yep.
How many times we were towing that now instead of losing, our theory was instead of losing a flatbed, we can set a wrecker, right? Because the wrecker can tow the trailer and put the motorcycle inside. But then you had to tow the trailer back empty all the time. Like we don't know what Clover's business model is, right? I looked them up just based off their area code. They're in southwestern British Columbia. We can't, neither of us know what their bike volume is.
True.
Their bike volume alone might justify this. Not to mention how many times when you showed up with that trailer, the enclosed version of this, right? How many times were customers thrilled? They loved it.
Through the moon. Through the moon.
100%. They would rather see it on that than inside or just on the back of a flatbed every day of the week.
They'd rather not see it because it's in an enclosed trailer than seeing it on the back of a flatbed.
Yeah, 100%. It's the back of the flatbed. Oh, you got to pull it on. You got to whatever. This rolls in like a trailer. Like it's designed specifically for that.
Yep.
But this to pull your... First of all, have you ever loaded or unloaded a set of airbags?
No.
I didn't think so. Okay. Don't get me wrong. They're not pleasant to haul around.
Correct.
But I mean, in a situation like if you needed to load airbags into this van, it's not a problem. And don't forget, an airbag job, for the most part,
is not a drop of a hat. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. There's planning, there's coordination, there's everything that goes into it. So the time that it takes to load them up is kind of part of the job. So it is practical that it could still haul, clean up material. Who knows? This thing could have a full battery rack inside it where it's selling and installing batteries or being used, probably for service calls in between stuff. So instead of getting a service car, they went a little bit bigger and got something that can be not just a service car. This thing isn't just dedicated to tire changes, boosts, unlocks. It's still probably more efficient than sending a full-size tow truck. Again, just cost if we want to go donuts to dollars, right? And instead of getting a smaller car, they've now taken the idea like we have of a Prius and made it be able to do a lot more. So I don't think it's a one-trick pony. I think they're introducing it as a motorcycle. Clover Towing, I believe, has been out there. I've heard that name before out in southwestern British Columbia. Obviously they're a decent sized fleet if they're adding that kind of equipment to it too. Like that is not something that a 2-truck mom and pop shop adds. And there's probably people that are smarter than you and I behind making some of these decisions.
Oh yeah.
But I imagine there's other purposes for that van, or there's another revenue stream planned within that van.
Yep. Oh
You're
no,
right.
in no way am I
If that
bashing
revenue
Clover
stream,
Towing.
like if that revenue stream for that specific unit was strictly based on like just bike,
Mm-hmm.
unless you have regular, and maybe they do, maybe they have massive amounts of motorcycle trips that come through there, like, maybe they're doing in the summertime and even part of, the winter, depending on what part of BC you're in, maybe they're doing motorcycles daily, where that kind of tool makes sense. For me, a van dedicated simply to motorcycles wouldn't make sense. For
No.
you, in your area, probably wouldn't either.
No.
But like Daytona Beach,
Maybe
something like that might make sense, right? Southwestern British Columbia.
I'm a firm believer in the trailer thing, because if you got a fold down ramp, ATVs, snowmobiles, got to help your buddy move, right? It's going to be harder to, especially like, I'm not sure how easy this ramp device is able to get in and out of the van, or how much room it takes up when it's actually folded up in the van itself. To where, what else can you actually put in the back of this van? Obviously, Clover Towing's more than well of a big enough company to where this makes sense for them, right? They wouldn't have done this if it didn't make financial sense. I'm just coming at it from a perspective of, it wouldn't make sense for me, so I'm criticizing it for that, realistically, because there's cheaper, easier alternatives out there. Does it make my way better? No. Does it make their way better? Who knows? But for me personally, in my area, having a dedicated van just for bikes and service calls just, I don't know, doesn't get my gears in motion like something else would.
You know what? It's funny that you say that. And it's great that, I really think this cold and this deep voice and this puberty in which you've hit is really maturing you.
Oh, really?
Because it's nice to admit, to say that just because it's not something I could use or a tool that I think would be beneficial for a situation that I can see, doesn't mean it's a stupid tool. If the internet could just be a little more on board with that, it would be great, right? Like,
if the internet could be a little more like G, it would be a better place.
Well, no, G in this state of mind that he is in right now, I wouldn't want the internet to be more like you on a day-to-day basis.
Come on.
But no, because I don't know if you remember back when there was a post going around on social media. I don't know if you've seen it, and it was about a guy asking or explaining to people a GM approved method of towing. I don't remember what kind of vehicle it was. It was one that caught me off guard. That you wouldn't expect to be able to run without dollies. It was an all-wheel drive version that you could run front-wheel drive without dollies, and it was right there in the owner's manual. And I seen that, and I went, "Oh, that's interesting." I want to say it was like an Equinox or something. I don't remember the specific type of vehicle, and I remember going like, "That's interesting." Like, that is something that I will keep into the back of my mind in this situation where maybe it's needed. Right? I don't know what, like an underground that my flatbed can't get in, and maybe the dollies are too, I don't know, a situation where maybe I could use that information. I'm not saying I'd use it on an everyday day-to-day basis, because it might not be a great idea. I'd still rather keep an all-wheel drive on a flatbed. Four-wheel and all-wheel, two different things. Willing to, there's some that I'm willing to do things with, there's some I'm not. But I thought about that and I went like, "Oh, that's cool, good information." And then I read the goddamn comments. And the comments are just like, "Guys are lazy. Guys are stupid. Don't do this. You're going to pay for a transmission." Da 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 da. Name every excuse you'd have thrown at you for thinking outside the box. And I just sat there and I went like, cool, you might not want to do it. I don't really overly want to do it. Like, I still believe I would put that on a bed. But don't beat the shit out of somebody for giving a tool that you can use. Again, we've ran into this before. Back pull hitches was the same thing. It's a tool. I'm not telling you to tow all your goddamn cars with that thing. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not telling you to just give that to any rookie in your fleet and say, "Here, go tow everything with this." But it's a goddamn tool in the toolbox that somebody could use at one point or might benefit. I ran into a situation where I needed that tool. It's the same thing with this. And there's so many goddamn arrogant tow operators out there that'll look for the error in everything. And that's what made me think of the van, right? We're like, "No, it's not right, but it's not right for me. But maybe it's right for somebody." Like, and I don't know. I feel like these arrogant assholes probably don't listen to our show anyways, because, they couldn't stand people talking about something and them not being able to give a goddamn opinion on it.
Yeah.
Because if they could, they wouldn't fucking comment on social media. I'm going on a tangent. But it's true. It's nice to hear that maturity in the towing industry where somebody can go, hey, wasn't the way I would have done it or something that I would do, but it might come in handy one day. I'm going to take that. I'm going to, use what I can from it. And maybe you get an Equinox one day where I don't know, right? That you can do this and move it out of a garage without it locking up or whatever you want to use that tool for or that information for. You do not have to apply it every goddamn day. But do not sit there and run up 100 comment absolutely just beating the shit out of somebody, right? For posting a piece of information that you might not have known about.
Like most all-wheel drive vehicles, if you pick them up from the front, as long as you stay like under 20 kilometers an hour, so like 10, 12, 13 mile an hour, the rear end spins freely. So like if you do got to get it out of that garage, you can do that. But that's not a one-trick pony because like if you've ever tried to pick up an Escape before that's all-wheel drive, you might make it 2 feet before the SN locks up on you.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly, right? So again, having that information is probably a tool.
Yeah.
So we've stayed away from we've tried to really gear the show a lot more over recent time to general towing information and to stick away from our main home province of Ontario, only because our listenership is not from Ontario. Some people do like hearing what's going on in other provinces or other states and that kind of thing. So there has been an interest in it. But we have, for the most part, tried to just get back to the basics of towing and obviously at the beginning of this show, comedy. But there is some interesting news coming out of Ontario, and I promised myself from the beginning that I would do my best to stay neutral on this matter. I just realized this putting it up here, I can't actually read the whole thing because your head's in the way. But I do have it open on another screen, luckily, so I will be okay.
Your head's in the way. My head's not.
That's true. Your head's away. So Ontario towers. I will read over this letter. It is a little long-winded. I do apologize. However, Ontario towers are threatening a day of action in May, coming up in a couple weeks. And I think there's some interesting points made in this. I'm going to stay neutral on where I stand, whether I believe or not believe in this. I'll try my best to stay neutral because I'm not always good at that.
I can't promise the same.
So, to the towers of Ontario, a group of professional towers from throughout Ontario have been in discussion as to what steps need to be taken to get Ontario government back to the table to begin an open, honest dialogue with the towing industry to discuss solutions to the issues created by the Towing and Storage Safety and Enforcement Act. That is TSIA. We have had episodes in the past, if you go look back, about TSIA. We want and need to work towards a common goal to safely and efficiently service the motoring public of Ontario and keeping Ontario's roadways open for business through a partnership that creates fairness, support, and sustainability to the towing industry. These issues include, but are not limited to, designing a TSIA price sheet that works for all stakeholders, right? There's been obviously confusion, misunderstanding, anger about how the maximum rate schedules came out in Ontario and what it was to follow them. Regulations that fairly protect the Ontario motorist, towing, and insurance industry as a whole. So in all these regulations that we read out back when, there is no protection given to the towing industry, right? The protection was given a lot to the consumer, to the insurance companies, but nothing given to the towing industry. Stop the abuse of RSLA Section 24 loophole by the insurance industry. This is the option under the Repair Storage Liens Act, Section 24, where they can file it into court if they don't agree with the bill, kickstarting a long-standing issue. They get the vehicle out right away. Towing companies don't get the money until either a settlement is agreed to or the issue goes to court, which can be up to and over a year away. So they're pretty much threatening companies with Section 24s if they don't take, a cut on the bill. And a lot of companies can't afford to float that money for, up to or over a year. A fairly priced insurance program for the towing industry, including the ability to insure new drivers. That is obviously, we're seeing that across. I'm seeing complaints out of every state, every province right now. And the cost of insurance and being able to get new drivers on has increased significantly if you can get insurance at all. right? A lot of insurance companies won't touch drivers under 3 years. They've really pushed this into a monopoly because a very limited number of companies will do it. And if they do it, they're obviously going to do it at a massive increase or premium. A fair and legal program for drivers with legal records for which they have paid their dues. So in other words, allowing a driver who may have had a criminal conviction in the past an option to, still work within the industry as long as, a set time or whatever is passed. Oh, never mind. With legal records for which they have paid their dues. Maybe not what I'm thinking. CVOR regulation compliance that allows 24/7, 365 service for all of Ontario. I don't really know what that one is. Getting a fair pay for every service, and that is a big thing, right?
Yep.
The professional towers of this province are certainly not opposed to the regulations of the towing industry, if structured fairly. It is clear that these regulations are written, were heavily influenced by the insurance industry and the auto club industry. The towing industry's request for fair regulation was almost entirely ignored, even though we were a stakeholder at the meetings with the Ontario government. Despite numerous attempts over the last 5 months to get the Ontario government back to the table with the towing industry, who are the subject matter experts, to discuss changes that need to be made in order to have a healthy, sustainable towing industry in Ontario, all lines of communication have fallen silent. Left with no other option, towers across the province are starting to withdraw their services from the police, excluding life-endangering situations. This withdrawal is not intended to affect our regular customer base, only tow requests for which we are not guaranteed payment. The first withdrawal will be at 12 p.m. May 17th and continue until 8 a.m. May 21st. These scheduled withdrawals will continue until the Ontario government agrees to open a meaningful dialogue with the towing industry to work towards an equitable solution for all. We understand that this may not be possible for everyone to participate. However, it is important to recognize that this is your livelihood, your business, your industry, and we believe it is worth fighting for. We do not condone any violence or acts of illegal activity. We are simply asking the Ontario government to get back to the table with the towing industry. We are the only responder to a provincial municipal roadway that is not publicly funded, and as such, we must have assurance of payment to perform our work. The towing industry is under no legal obligation to clear Ontario roadways. We must be paid for our work. It is time for the insurance industry, provincial and municipal governments, police agencies, and auto clubs to recognize the invaluable service tow companies provide day in and day out, 365 days a year. We ask that you put aside your differences for the betterment and fair treatment of the towing industry and better future for us all. This is your equipment, your business, your livelihood, your profession, and your future. Know your worth. Put your chains down and take a well-deserved long weekend off. So, I'm sorry, that is a little long-winded. I do apologize. Not my words. It is words, and I mean, it's up on the screen. I don't have to call it out. It's words by a very well-respected professional in the towing industry within Ontario.
A lot of people know this person.
Yeah, 100%. And I,
if you're on YouTube, you can find the name pretty easy.
I support the message. I do. I agree in all of those things. However, and this is where I will stay neutral, but give an opinion somehow. The government has not fully even launched the program. The final stages have not even come in. I agree with everything that you say. The payment part has been a big thing from the beginning. Right? A lot of this has been big for beginning. Two things. This legislation was written and available up to a year before it came out. You're right. Maybe the towing industry as a stakeholder was at the table and thought that they would have more influence before it started to come into effect. Maybe. Right? Obviously, there was meetings that were held. Obviously, opinions were ignored. I don't deny any of these things. But when the program isn't fully even incorporated yet, right? It's not. It hasn't fully launched yet. And you are going to them pretty much fundamentally wanting to change this from the ground up to incorporate these things and to stop these practices and to incorporate all these good things that I believe are good things for the industry that we need. I feel like I need to keep reminding myself and the listener of that. They're not taking our calls. They're not negotiating with us. They're not sitting down at the table. Of course they're not. They're too busy trying to manage this program that they launched. This program, well, you got to remember when the TSEA regulations were drafted, if you want to say, the original idea behind TSEA was to do what? What was it to do, G? In your opinion, what do you think TSEA was built to do?
Well, it was to throw more regulations at the industry that had very little to begin with, to make the bad actors within the industry that were just skating by and mistreating customers and consumers, so to where they would either have to smarten up and get with the program and provide a fair service for a fair price, or get out of the industry entirely.
100%. Has TSEA done that? And this isn't a direct question. This is more of that is the question at hand, is has TSEA in its early infancy been able to do that? I think TSEA has taken steps in order to do that. Is there more progressive ways or more efficient ways to do it? I think it's possible. I think any program that launches like this is not going to be, A1 from the beginning, but you cannot expect them to redesign the program. And I know they're not using the word redesign, but you cannot expect them to veer far enough off course with the request that, again, I believe the requests are reasonable. I just don't think that a program launching at this state, like where it's at, it hasn't even come fully into effect yet, that you can implement those changes. TSEA was meant to give the government teeth. To give the government teeth in order to eliminate these bad actors, as you so say. Right? And the Act does that. The Act does give the government teeth. Right? The Act gives the government teeth against possibly good towers too. And that was a fear. I mean, how many times, though, have we seen this over and over and over again? Like, unfortunately, good players are going to fall because of TSEA.
Yep.
It's an unfortunate reality. It is from the day that you requested or needed to be regulated by the government because we couldn't self-regulate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from the government. I'm here to help, right? We've said that line on here multiple times.
Episode 4, I think, is when we first said that.
Right. I can give an example. There were stories my dad would tell me where the Ministry of Labor couldn't really touch farms, especially family farms, because they weren't workers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then there was having all kinds of injuries and all kinds of issues, and we want your help. And then they came in, but then they didn't like the help that they got. Right. The towing industry went through a very similar phase with that.
Mm.
Right. We need your help to get rid of all these terrible people that are charging absorbent amounts on the highway and everything and making the rest of us look bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what happened when the ministry got involved in some of those family farms? When the rules started to come into play and they had to follow them, there was many good family farms that took the hit too.
Yep.
These are the natural progressions of these. Now, I'm not saying it just sit back and not accept, and accept that this change is the be all end all. And I do respect the fact that what they are saying is not that we are going to do a province-wide strike of any sorts or day of action. It is only for police requested tows other than if there is a imminent danger to somebody, right? So what that means is if the police call you because a vehicle is partially submerged in water and they need the tow truck to, support the vehicle, whatever the case may be, they will say yes.
Mm.
But if you call me for a van that is rolled over and hit a box culvert on the 401, a $500 van that I know is just going to end up owning in my yard because I have no guarantee of payment, and no legal repercussion other than just let the towing company deal with it. They can scrap it and get their money back. Other than that, I'm not responding to that call. That is the step that they want to take, which isn't a terrible step.
I think from reading this letter, it states that they were in the decision-making board when these regulations were brought into effect. And I don't disagree with that. Drafted even. I think what honestly happened was you've got the governing body and you've got lobbyists from the insurance companies, auto clubs, and of course the towing industry there. Well, the government looks down and they see the auto clubs that make millions, maybe $1 billion, and pay taxes on that. And they see the insurance companies that do the same. And then they see the towing industry sitting there. And
I believe up to 3 different associations represented in that.
Yep. And
So, when
unfortunately,
they went to the roadsides, they went, "Hey, big roadside. Okay, cool. Hey, insurance companies, you guys are all on the same page?" "Yes, we are." And then you got three bands of different groups of towers,
they're all bickering
right?
amongst each other probably
Or
because we
may
can't ever
they
get
don't
it
have to be
on the same
bickering, but
page.
exactly, right? There's
Yeah.
different views that each of them have, just with different boards of
Mhm.
directors. I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong.
Yeah,
Just, they're not a collective group, I don't think, as much
exactly.
as these roadsides and insurance were.
And I honestly think it might have been pushed to the wayside, all these other things, when the original thing was drafted. Because, like you said, what this was drafted for was to get the bad actors out of the industry. And whenever the government says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, there's always overreach. And that's what we're seeing. Obviously, the time to say this is what we need was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when this was being brought up. Unfortunately, it's the same analogy of when was the best time to plant a tree? The best time was yesterday. The second best time is now. And unfortunately, my side of things, if we don't get on this and saying, hey, we don't agree with this, we need to do something about this, if we let it sit for another year or two, the chances of them changing something goes down. If we start making a little bit of noise and say, hey, we need to re-look at some of these things, I think we have a better opportunity to get this in now, because it is still in its infancy. Nothing's set in stone yet, per se, right? The fact
Now,
that they're not actually coming and talking to us, like you said, they're busy doing other things, but they still need to listen to the industry, because if the industry goes poof overnight, it will never go poof overnight. But let's say you lose
there's
all
always
your
some dumb millionaire with money somewhere.
yeah, exactly. But if you lose all these big reputable towing companies because they just say, you know what, I've made decent money over the last 30 years, my family's set, my kids are set, I'm just done, I'm not going to play by these unfair rules anymore, who's going to suffer the most? It's going to be the police officers that didn't request this, that now have to deal with subpar service. It's going to be the consumers that are now going to have to deal with subpar service. It's going to be everyone except the towing industry, whoever's left in the towing industry trying to pick up the pieces after all these good players just exited,
But
right?
that's what I mean. I'm not saying that I want to see good players exit, but if you can go, like, you get through the 3 years of this program,
Hmm.
right? And good players will some good players will make it, some good players won't. It's the
Hmm.
reality of it, and I don't want to see anybody not make it. You get through these 3 years of it, and you go, you don't think you're in a better spot to be able to approach the government as a collective whole
Hmm.
and go, look, when you brought out to see it was to do this. Yes, you have accomplished that. If you look, this has gone down, this has gone down. What you set out succeeded. You eliminated the bad actors within the towing industry. You took a lot of good ones with them, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But you know what I mean? You lowered, these incidents of major fraud and everything else. Like you've done that.
Hmm.
So, but now the industry is not sustainable. We have floated and we have fought through this with you
Hmm.
to help you achieve the goal that you were at. But the profit, what I mean? The business model isn't sustainable, and we are going to start having to pull out of stuff. Like,
But the
let
problem
the
is they're
program
not willing to
run its
talk
course.
currently. If they're not
What's
willing to
that?
talk, you can't have that conversation. They're not talking. There
I know,
is
but I'm
no
not
other
asking to have
dialogue.
that conversation right now. I'm asking to let this program run its course. Let it get to its point. You say that, what's going to happen is the cops are going to have to deal with subpar service. That this is going to have to deal with That's when the change is going to need to happen.
Yeah.
Right now, unfortunately, there's a lot of good companies in this province, and there's a lot of fucking bad ones. There is a lot of bad companies,
Hmm.
right? And we're seeing, and some bad companies are still thriving.
Hmm.
And you're seeing the bills, and you're seeing that, and I'm not one to criticize someone's bill, because unless you're there, it's very hard to, know what you would have
Hmm.
charged or what you would have done.
Yep.
But we know that there is corruption in our industry. We know that. The
Hmm.
people that wrote this letter know that.
Hmm.
And I get it. You do not want to see a single good tower get taken out or forced out or pushed out when we've already seen them drop. Because you're right.
Hmm.
They say, screw it. I'm near retirement anyways, done.
Mhm.
And then you got, you do have some bigger companies that are thriving off that and expanding their territory. And some of those big companies aren't great companies either. Right? But you have to let the program fully come into place. You're going to lose good operators. So you can use this as a virtue signaling, you know what I mean? That, hey, I no person left behind. And I have a lot of respect for this poster. I have a huge amount of respect for this poster. I've had many conversations over the years with this poster, and I if you're listening, I want you to be aware of that. It's nothing personal. Where everyone has different views. In my opinion, though, I still don't believe this is the right approach. Right? I believe in everything that you were saying. I believe, and I would love to see all of that. At the end of the day, good businesses are going to fall because of this, and unfortunately, it's business. Good businesses have fallen many times because of changes to an industry. Right? Do everything you can to not be that good business. If you care enough to want to continue in this industry, if you do not, I mean, I would never fault the guy for at this point getting out of it. With all the changes, like we had friends of ours that shut the doors and moved on. Hindsight, I think it was the right time for them.
Yep. 100%.
Right? I don't think all these changes would have been so. It's just it's part of the game, and unfortunately, it's a game that we went on taking advantage of, whether we did directly or to the some of us did it to bigger extents than others. But it was a system that was unregulated that was taken advantage of for a long time. The overreaction is here. Find a way to make, instead of taking the time saying stop doing this police work with towers on ways to be able to get through this, whether that be crossing your T's and dotting your I's to make sure that consents are taken care of, to make sure that, people are taking these regulations seriously, that they're not going to get screwed on a $5,000 bill on a storage invoice because they didn't do a proper notification or they didn't do a proper consent or all that. Like, take the time, you know what I mean? Like, let's take our resources and help build up the good companies in these situations, rather than taking that same energy and applying it to just this day of action, this idea, it's, again, I have all the respect for you in the world. I just don't agree.
I think it's not even so much the day of action part. It's just trying to get the community of towers together, because I think that's always been one of our biggest weaknesses in this industry is
100%.
We don't have the ability to come together as a collective whole, right? And I'm not advocating for a towing union or something. I think the organizations are just fine. But I think more people need to get involved in the organizations and actually be able to get involved with the ability to lobby and have their voice be heard. And I think that's what this is a main call for. It's saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We want your support because this is the goal that we are trying to fight for. And it's a goal we can all get behind, but they need to be able to get the word out and get that support behind them. So then when push does come to shove and they get to be able to talk to the government again, they actually listen to us and say, we are hurting, we are bleeding financially for this reason and this reason, and it could be no fault of our own because the cards are stacked against us, and we need to fix this. And here are some possible solutions to fix this problem. Because if you come to me with a problem with no solution, well, then you haven't really thought about the problem too hard. And that you just got to have everything fully thought out. And I think with more people standing behind them, it's going to be easier. And I think that's just what this is for. It's a call to action to get that support that they need, regardless of how much of an impact it actually has in the now of stopping service.
That is fair. You know what? That's what's great about the show, is that we can have two different views to it, two different sides to it. We can have a conversation about all the things that people shouldn't have a conversation about, or, say that you shouldn't talk about, or, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be an argument. It can be an honest, open discussion about it. So no hard feelings to, whether it be the poster or anyone who thought it otherwise. That is kind of starting to wrap up towards our time. It took a little longer than we were expecting. I know we did miss one thing. It's something we can gladly get to on the next week's episode.
Yep.
So yeah, let us hear your thoughts, right? If you are a tower in Ontario and you've seen this call for a day to action or this call to action period, I guess the weekend of action, let me know what your thoughts are. You can send us a text if you're listening over on the audio side. Just look in your episode description. Tell us, hey, PlainGuy, you're way out of line. TowManG, I fully agree, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. You can visit us at www.towinglife.ca, where you can find a contact us button there. You can email us directly at thetowinglife@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook at the Towing Life Podcast. If you are watching on the YouTube side, do not forget, leave a comment down below, hit the like, subscribe, all the buttons you can click, just click them all. And on behalf of myself and my wonderful co-host, Mr. TowManG, we appreciate you coming out to another episode of the Towing Life Podcast, and we cannot wait to see you again next week. Take care.
Toodles.